I am going to do my very first video narration, and got my daughter here with me. And so the book that I read was this little picture book, Gregor Mendel, The Friar Who Grew Peas. And this was a really interesting little picture book. It was a pretty quick read, but it had a lot of information about him. So Gregor Mendel was born in the Czech Republic in the early 1800s, and he was the son of a farmer. He lived in a farming town that raised sheep and other agriculture, and he learned when he was young that the farmers would cross-fertilize or cross-pollinate the different apple trees to grow a better fruit, and they would breed the different sheep together to grow thicker wool. And he was really interested in this and wanted to find out why and how that happened. Well, as he grew older, he wanted to learn more, so his parents scraped up all the money they could and sent him to a school. But they didn't have enough money to pay for his room and his schooling and his food. He only had about half the money he needed for food. But he was okay with that because he would rather fill his head with knowledge than fill his belly with food. So that went on okay for a while, but then his father broke his back, and he couldn't work anymore on the farm, and they couldn't send any more money for Gregor to go to school. So Gregor decided to just start taking care of himself, and he had to find a way to make a living so that he could continue school. So he became a tutor. He did this for a while, but that provided him with even less food, and he said that he couldn't keep going on not knowing when his next meal was going to come. And so he ended up becoming a friar. And when he did that, he was surrounded by lots of other men who loved learning. They were scientists and mathematicians and philosophers. And the abbey that he lived at had bookshelves full of, more than 30,000 books. And he was given 3 good meals a day. So this was a good life for him, and he was able to talk to all these other men about learning, and it was a good environment for him. Well, the leader of the abbey said, well, he was impressed by Gregor, so he sent him away to the university in Vienna, I believe. And at that university, Gregor learned lots of things that ended up being useful to him later on. He learned about universal laws, like the universal law of gravity, and he learned about how to make experiments, how to design experiments to prove your theories or your ideas. When he came back from university, he became a teacher, and he was a great teacher because all the children just loved his excitement for learning. And although he was a great teacher, he still couldn't get the ideas of these traits and passing down these traits to his children out of his head. So he ended up deciding that he needed to create his own experiment to see how these traits were passed down. And so he chose his plants carefully, and he ended up choosing peas as his plant. And he chose 7 traits to try to study. Some of them were yellow and green peas, rough or smooth pea pods, smooth or bumpy pea seeds, some things like that. He chose 7 pairs of traits. And before he could even start his experiments, he had took 2 years to get his control, basically. He planted seeds for 2 years to make sure that every time he planted one seed, its child seeds would be just like the parent. So for 2 years he did that, and then he started his experiments. And the way he did it was he clipped the, I'm probably going to get these names all wrong. He clipped the stamen, I believe, of the flower and used it to fertilize the egg of the other flower, or he used it to fertilize the plant that he wanted to fertilize. And when he was finished, he had done hundreds of flowers all by hand, and then he had to cover each plant with a bag to make sure that they weren't pollinated in some other way by butterflies or bees or the wind even. And so the first time the harvest came, he saw that the child plant was exactly like one of the parents. And so he did the experiment again, and this time he planted the hybrid seeds, but he let nature take its course and let them get fertilized naturally. And he was wondering when that happened, when they looked just like one parent, if the other traits were lost. So if he had planted a yellow pea mixed with a green pea, and then the pea plant that resulted was all yellow, was the green trait lost forever? But what he found out with his next time was that no, it wasn't lost forever. Um, so he went through this process a few times, and he finally came to the conclusion that there are recessive traits and dominant traits. And he coined the term for these genes. So he learned that there are recessive genes and dominant genes, and that the recessive genes, though they might not be seen, they never truly go away. They're still there. They're just masked by the dominant trait. So he took these findings and he presented them to a Natural History Society, and they were published in a journal, but nobody paid attention. Nobody could see the connection between what he did with all these peas and how it could help them with other agriculture, or even in the future how it's helped us with people and things. So he pretty much, he died in 1864, and he was pretty much unknown for his discoveries. But in the year 1900, three different scientists in different countries were on the verge of making the same discoveries. And then they found the paper that Gregor had published, and they were all just astounded that this person, 35 years earlier, had already discovered these things. And so today, Gregor Mendel is known as the father of genetics, and we even call the laws in genetics Mendel's laws. And today, genetics help us with a lot of things. They help us cure diseases and help us in agriculture. They help us in agriculture and just studying nature, plants and animals, and all of that kind of stuff. So we're very thankful to Gregor. And actually, when I was in high school and I started learning about genetics, I wanted to be a geneticist. I wanted to work in a lab and do all kinds of experiments, and I still get super interested in all that kind of stuff. But it's funny because even when I was in school, I learned some basics about genetics. I never learned about who the father of genetics was. So this was very interesting to me. And that's it. Okay.